Welcome to Pro Talk by Atlanta Communities. We have a great discussion that we're going to go through today, and I've got some wonderful guest speakers here. We're going to start with Mark Hall, and then we have Clint Setzer and Tal Kramer. And of course, I'm Natasha Reese-Kranz. And we have the magical discussion of property management today, the do's and don'ts. You guys ready for this?
We are.
All right.
This will be a quick one.
Don't do it.
And done.
Yeah, there you go.
Go home. So let's define the terrain, because there is a big difference between property management and then property rentals, where an agent is just helping a landlord find a tenant, versus property management where they're really doing everything for them.
The day-to-day stuff, yeah.
So let's explain that, because our audience may not know what the difference is.
Yeah.
First, it's simple. It's a question of liability exposure. That's really what it comes down to, because as you absorb all the tasks that are involved in managing the property, your liability exposure just ratchets up dramatically.
Well, yeah.
So speaking of that, sorry to cut you off, Clint, but speaking of that, so why in the hell would you do it? And why did you get started doing property management?
Well, I think you get another segment about our background. I'll wait for that. Unless you want me to
better to talk about it now. I mean, why would somebody want to jump right into that liability pool?
Look, in my own case, it's like most of the things that we do in life. It's not intentional. Nobody grew up, I'm going to be a real estate agent. I'm going to be a property manager. It just didn't start out that way. And we started, when I say we, my wife and I started selling homes in 91, and we had already owned a rental of our own. And I remember selling a home to an investor, and the investor said, hey, you've got a rental. Will you manage this for me? And I said, no. And I was short-sighted at the time, simply thinking, oh, I'm making, this is back in the 90s, but I'm still making $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 on a commission. I'm going to get $200 a month for a rental management. No, thank you. It was that simple.
Well, and 200 was good at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was on the higher side of things.
Without a doubt. Now, fast forward, and we've got a few rentals now. We're not big investors. But fast forward, and just as the recession was coming, bam, 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 owner after owner was contacting us and saying, hey, I got to sell my home. And they'd either recently bought it and they were going to give up most of their equity. They were going to have to bring money to the closing table. And I turned to Jeanette and I said, look, I know we never really wanted to do this, but let's do the right thing for them. Let's help them out. We'll manage it for 3 to 5 years and then we'll sell it. Okay. Next thing I know, we had 10. Next thing I know, we had 15 properties. And it was like, oh shit, we better figure out what we're doing because, we had our own, but you don't know what you don't know, as Mark and I have discussed over and over and over again. And there's an organization called NARPM, the National Association of Residential Property Managers. And the Atlanta chapter is the largest in the country. Clint's a past president. I'm a past president. We've been on the board forever. Well, I miss the old Atlanta showcase, the FMLS showcase. One day we're in the showcase and Jeanette sees a booth and it says property management. Well, NARPM had a booth there. Thank God she saw that. We walked over, we signed up, and it's just what we have learned, leaps and bounds, to then help us be actually good at what we're doing and professional.
Yeah, and I think that, you were heading towards that education is everything in our real estate careers. And GAR's out there, NAR's out there, and our local Board of Association of Realtors are out there, but it doesn't give us the in-depth education that we need, such as NARPM, and each other. I mean, of course, Tal and I are great friends, and we're competitors in the industry, but we spend a lot of time together talking about how we can do it better. And I say we, it's our whole industry. How can we do this better? And that education component, I feel, is missing. And therefore, agents, yes, we're all licensed to do property management and lease a home, but we're not educated enough to get out there and really do it. There's no way, and heck, I'm going to go out and do something commercial or industrial. I just don't know. And it's what you don't know is what's going to get you in trouble.
And we've talked before. It's like, I don't do what I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't manage HOAs. I won't do commercial real estate. I won't sell land. I won't do short-term rentals. It's like, I know I don't know stuff.
Sure.
Well, see, I think about doctors all the time, and I think about, so a doctor's a podiatrist, and he wakes up and says, I think today I'll be a heart doctor. No. So it's really, that's part of it, is knowing what you don't know, and also not being afraid to say, I don't know about that, I'm not doing it.
We use that example, and I've heard a more common example. And many times we all have to take some type of medication. We are often asking that pharmacist, hey, I'm kind of hurting to do this. Why would you ask the pharmacist to diagnose whatever you're trying to get fixed, opposed to going to the doctor? Just because they are licensed to answer that question, why not have a property management company, whether whoever it is that is educated in that field and know the rules and laws? Again, we're all licensed to do it, but doesn't necessarily mean we need to do it.
Well, I'll dig that one step deeper. Very early in my career, my broker, I started off with Century 21 in 1991. He would send me to all these free seminars. I eventually had to tell him, stop sending me to free seminars because I keep walking away with $200 and $300 of tapes, and I can't afford to go to these anymore. But Tommy Hopkins was one of the trainers, and this has always stuck with me. He talked about the 4 stages of learning. We've talked about this, and I recently found out it was, I heard it from him, but I think it was Malcolm Bennett actually gets the credit for it from back in '69. But the 4 stages: unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, consciously competent, unconsciously competent. Unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know. I was there at the beginning, as we all were. And this, what I'm saying, has nothing, it's not limited to real estate. Raising children, my God, most complicated thing we'll ever do, and we get no training for it. Yep. Consciously competent. You don't know stuff, but you're aware of it. Unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent. That's what I said wrong. You don't know stuff, but you can know where to find it. And then consciously competent. You can do it. You've got checklists. You've got resources. You figure it out. And eventually you become consciously competent. It's smooth. It's second nature. You roll with it. It's like all of us have done sales presentations. At some point, you've done it so many times, you don't have to think about it. And you can let the person you're talking to interrupt with questions and navigate here and there because you know it inside and out. Well, you've got to get educated to do this job.
Well, you commented earlier about, wow, we've got 15 rentals now at this point. We really got to figure this out. And that's detrimental to your license. I mean, our license is all one of the most important things to us besides family, kids, our lives. And you don't want to mess that up. I think it's something that, okay, what do I need to learn to figure this out? And many times as a new agent, we are just trying to take in and do as many things as we can. As you had alluded to before we started shooting, was I'm going to show this rental, and it took 8 trips down there, and nobody showed up. There's more to it than just the showing of it. There's listing it, making sure you've got your rental criteria placed out for everybody to see, and that it's applied to everybody, not just one person, one group, whatever it is. It's you have to have your ducks in a row before you can even move on doing
It's
it.
so much different, more different than just residential sales. And I thought people think it's the same. Basically, it is residential and all, but it's so different.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
just don't know what. Again, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Well,
So
And you think you know things. I mean,
we talk about service animals.
yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, there we go. Right on.
Well, and you use that one of many times that an investor says, no, I don't want any pets whatsoever. No problem. Well, we have somebody that's applied with a service animal. I said I don't want any pets. Well, that's fine. This isn't a pet. It's a service animal. And you can't deny whatsoever. You can't charge for it, whatever. It's not allowed. And many times you've got that investor dictating. That is part of the problem of anything related to leasing or managing, as an investor dictating. Most of us that do it on a day-to-day basis, we say we don't allow our investors dictate because we're following all these rules. They don't know the rules. That's why they've hired us. And even from the leasing perspective of it can get lost. And that investor says, well, I want to see the credit report. I want to see who's going in. I want to see what kind of dog they have. Like, it really matters to the agent to make sure that those ducks are in a row to have that.
You've got to be the professional.
You've got to be that professional.
We're used to, listen, even on sales, you've got to be the professional. But a lot of the agents they're more used to being order takers and following. You do want to respect your client's wishes, but you've got to know enough that you're the professional to guide them and tell them what's reasonable and what's not reasonable.
Well, and let's talk about that for a second, because with an agent, they are regular residential agent. They happen to sell a property, and the owner says, hey, would you mind being the property manager on this? Would you manage it for me? And in their eyes, they say, well, this is a couple extra $100 a month, nothing to it. What would you say to that agent? Because they don't know all of the things that could happen, what they should be doing. They're just going off of, well, it's an extra $200 or something a month. What would you tell that agent?
I would tell that agent you need to get educated. It's funny. We joke in the industry. You think about managing a property. You think about finding a tenant, screening a tenant, and signing a lease and collecting the rents. In reality, we're in the maintenance business. And oh, by the way, we find tenants and collect rents. It's really surprising how much of our time is spent on the maintenance side. So now you're going to think about, I'm going to manage a property. Do I have the resources? What criteria will I have for the contractors? Do I make sure they have insurance? Am I covered with that insurance as additional insured? Do they have workman's comp? My owner says, I'm handy. I want to go ahead and do some repairs. Is that wise? Why isn't it wise? As Mark knows, I have this whole philosophy of what if. Everything I decide is based on what if. And you have to think things down the line. It's not the agent that just writes a lease. They don't think about what happens at the back end. I'll give you a simple example. There's a holdover fee in the lease. And I've reviewed a lot of leases for Atlanta Communities. Hey, it's blank. Well, now the tenant doesn't move out on time. You can't say anything. You left it blank. But even worse, people put in there, holdover fee, $25 a day. Well, I'll spend an extra week or 2 weeks here. Yeah, you can go ahead and try and evict me. What's it going to cost me, $100, $200? Smart thing is, we'll put in ours, it's $300 a day. The tenant goes, what are you, crazy? I could get a hotel room for that. Good, go get a hotel room. You're supposed to be out.
See you later.
thinking about what are the consequences down the line based on the decisions you make today. The move-in, move-out form. Gosh, if anybody's actually listening to this, I would never use the short form. And you and I have communicated about put the move-in and the move-out on the same form. Well, the problem with that is if you look at the GAR form, you got this much space to write something in. And I say, living room walls, okay, couple of marks. Well, now they've done all this damage at the back end. How do you compare it to the front end to defend this in front of a judge?
It was okay, though.
It was okay.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's you touched on a good point, was the move-in part of it. That is so detrimental. And Georgia's got some of the strictest laws on a security deposit. Oof. And yes, we're for sure regulated. The brokerage is regulated and how that money is handled. And typically they think earnest money and whatnot, but that security deposit cannot be paid until a move-in inspection has been performed. And most of the time we take that money, or agents take that money in and as a reservation fee to hold the property.
No, most of them don't.
We know better. Right. We know
better.
better. But agents that are just doing a lease only, or even trying to dip their toe in property management, well, you take that and convert it to, the way the judges look at it is that security deposit was taken before a move-in inspection was performed. And to your point on the move-in forms, they're a great tool, but they are not the best tool out there whatsoever.
You need photos, you need video.
And in our reports, what we do as a move-in, we use a third-party provider that does a move-in report that's almost close to an inspection report. Pictures, damages, circled, scratch on the wall. And I was told by an attorney way back when of no judge is going to go, no, that's way too much information. A move-in report the move-in GAR report is only 5 pages or maybe 6 pages. Now, I haven't looked at it in so long because we don't use them, but no photos, no documents. But on top of that, we have our tenant do a move-in report. Prior to that, we had listing photos. Again, no judge is going to tell you, no, that's way too much information. When that move-out report happens, and it has to happen within 3 days, we also have that. And then they want to dispute. Well, our photos didn't show it. Our move-in report didn't show it. By the way, your move-in report didn't show it. It's hard to dispute that.
Yeah.
And handle that process of the security deposit.
Well, I think it explains to the tenant the gravity of what they're about to embark on, because it's a level of professionalism that you don't have if I'm just walking through it with them. And they go, oh, well, Mark, that's not a big deal to us. Yeah, but it may be a big deal in the end.
Yeah, and you were talking about a year later, 2 years later.
Maybe
nobody
longer.
remembers what actually happened.
Right.
And this circles back to your very first question, difference between leasing and management, and my answer about liability. Because even if you're only doing leasing, I've often recommended you treat that owner as a customer, not a client.
Interesting.
And the reason I say that is because of your liability exposure. Now, the GAR form for the lease listing agreement has one of the check boxes of services that you're going to do the move-in report. I would never do that if I'm a leasing only agent just doing that, because, it's so many things. If it's something gets missed at the end, who do you think that owner is coming back to? And they don't remember it 2 years later either. And how good of an inspector are you? And I'm going to use the word inspector. Did you catch that loose handrail? Did you catch that loose deck step? And somebody falls and gets injured, and now you're enjoined into that lawsuit, and you set up as a client that you are going to represent them? No, let the owner do his or her own move-in inspection report if you're only leasing. If you're going to be a professional and a manager like Clint is and I am, that's a different story. And we'll spend the money to have third-party services.
It's also interesting that I hear all the time and go, well, it costs money. This goes to closing attorneys, et cetera, where they'll say, well, this one is cheaper. And I'm like, okay, I'm telling you, I will not pick an attorney based on what the price is.
Right.
I'm going to pick an attorney that I know is going to get the job done. This is no different than it is with the move in and move out. Who gives a damn if it costs $500 a whack? The owner can absorb that money.
Yeah.
And they should.
We
Because if it's my house and I'm the owner and now I'm leasing it out to people through one of you guys, and I want to make sure that my asset is protected. I'm not interested in, I'm long term, that's the goal, is to maintain the property. And who's going to better do that, a third party or me? I'm only as good as I am.
We'll ratchet that a step further. If you're talking about a move-in inspection, the typical mindset is, oh, I'm just trying to notate the defects. Well, what about liability concerns, safety concerns? What about being a good manager and saying to the owner, look, this is not something that's broken, but it's something I would advise you to address because it's going to preserve the quality of your property. How many agents are going to go into the stove and pull on it to see if the anti-tipping strap is attached? That might fall and injure the tenant's child.
That or smoke detectors. Yeah, I got a picture of it. It's there.
Does it work?
It's yellow. It doesn't. Well, I mean, we can tell that that's over. We're changing them out. We're putting new batteries in them. We're checking air filters, determining that that's been changed out, which that's not necessarily a safety issue. If there's any type of gas, is a CO detector. We put them on every floor. I think the standard is for NFPA is one in a house. We're taking another step further and add them on every floor. It's back to his point, is that safety, the liabilities. What if something happens? And those are all worst case scenarios and we never want to happen. But when it does, that number's not, they're not calling you up and go, hey, that smoke detector didn't work. Can you replace it? By the way, it burnt down half the house or something. Well, you're getting sued from the tenants. You're getting sued from investors. I mean, every which way.
We both have used a company called Onsite Pros that sends out the inspector, and they'll produce 60, 80-page report on a house and a summary section of the defects. But when it comes to smoke detectors, they test every detector 3 ways. They take it off the wall to look at the date and make sure it's still within the 10 years. They're going to check, hit the test button to make sure it works. But guess what? That only tested the battery, the electronics, and they spray can smoke to make sure the smoke sensor's working. Now, think about that fire happens, a tenant's injured, and you're getting sued, and the brokerage is getting sued, and you can turn around and say, Mr. Attorney, we care about our tenants. We have an independent company inspect every property. And by the way, they inspect every smoke detector these 3 ways. Do you think we're better every time? Every smoke detector. Do you think we're better protected?
We manage everything. We got a history. We can open up all our files. Here it is. This is the way we do business. Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's a major deal, and it protects the brokerage. And it's not only what we do to protect ourselves as property managers, but it's another reason why somebody who's leasing only shouldn't be doing the move-in inspection.
Or any of the move-in, move-out, because that move-in is typically related to, and that goes back to the customer-client thing, is tied to that security deposit.
Yeah.
That owner who's going to manage it themselves is doing the move-in. They've collected the security deposit. That's not a burden on the brokerage or the agent having to deal with that. And when they move out, that investor is doing the move-out inspection. There's no way an agent can be brought in, a brokerage can be brought into a lawsuit if something is disputing. And by the way, if something gets disputed and runs up to the courts, the judges do not. They frown big time. Well, a whole different liability in itself there, because if you did it wrong, it's going to be 3 times the amount of the security deposit that they can come for. If it's a $3,000 security deposit, that's $9,000. I mean, that's a healthy amount that none of us want to pay.
So with that, with an agent, and Mark, I was going to say, one of the things you always say is, it doesn't matter till it matters.
It matters a lot.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. And that's it. 90% of the time, an agent isn't going to have an issue where a house is burning down. But if something does happen, you want to make sure everything is protected. And agents aren't equipped to do that. Real estate agents are not equipped to do that. They don't have the processes that you guys have as property managers. I mean, you guys really are that is your one thing. That's what you really focus in on. Like you said, you've been educated, you have these courses, and you understand the liability. What I find a lot of agents saying when they reach out to a broker, when they're doing their first lease experience, they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand fair housing laws. They don't understand the emotional support animals, which it feels like everybody has, right? They just don't even understand the walkthrough inspection process. So if I'm hearing you properly, when we have an agent who wants to do leasing, and I like the differentiation, leasing versus property management.
Sure.
They're representing the landlord, but represent as a customer.
Just reduce your liability.
Perfect. And for that walkthrough is to have the landlord
Correct.
walk through an agent.
Or a third party.
Yeah, or even a third party, but that agent not still be involved.
How much is the third party?
Because of volume, we get good pricing. We just asked a good friend who owns On-Site Pros yesterday, and for a one-off, it's $250. It's well worth it.
Well, and so we utilize these third parties, not to say that we're not capable enough to do this. One, driving anywhere in Atlanta stinks, but two, the whole amount of time that it does. They are set up just as we are as property management companies to do move-in reports, move-out reports, and we also
Periodics.
utilize them for periodic inspections every 6 months. So that's another value add to that investor. But back to the animals part, I get they don't want a pet. That's fine. Then there you have a pet, and then an ESA. Let's just say that first of all, Fifi is a good dog. We know Graham downstairs; he's a sweet dog, all that. But you get another one that is not a great dog, might have bitten somebody that hasn't had vaccines, or you come in with an ESA animal. We utilize a third-party service called PetScreening.com. Again, we could probably look at Fifi and see he's a sweet dog and all that, or most likely ESA, that there's a support part of it there. They confirm that that is a legit ESA or a service animal, that they're going online, they're contacting the doctor that has provided that letter. That unfortunately, there are people that scam the system and come up with those letters. Well, they've confirmed that. But they also confirm from the pet side, is it been vaccinated? Is it trained? Is it bit anybody? This is all proven through their questions. And it's rated like Google ratings, 5-paw ratings opposed to 5-star ratings. Of course, you get a 5-paw rating, it's no issues. 1-paw, no different than a 1-star rating on a restaurant. Most likely, you're probably not going to go eat there. Right. And unfortunately, we've had to deny an applicant they were perfect, their pet was not. My point in all that was utilizing some of these third-party services, and these agents don't have access to do that. They can easily contact PetScreening.com or On-Site Pros and utilize their services. They just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. And for me, I started originally with pet screening. Only one reason. There is so much liability when it comes to ESAs and ESA fraud in the questions you ask and what you're requesting in terms of documentation. I didn't want to take that risk. These guys are the professionals. They're so professional, they actually work directly with HUD on policy. But they're the professionals. Let them ask those questions and ask them right, and just tell me the results.
Cheryl King just had a podcast, or one of her things that she put out, and she said, that there is still a lot of division within that ESA and service animal part as it relates to HUD, et cetera, because they reach a consensus about how it should be done, and then they pivot to different. So it's a real, that alone is enough reason to go, I'm sorry, I don't do that.
Well, in the division side of things, that they might not agree, or we might not agree with a policy or a law or whatever. That doesn't matter. We have to go by that. Right. And why take those steps or that risk to even, Fifi looks fine. Yeah. Well, Fifi bit somebody. You put that dog in there and it goes to bite something else, there's another liability. What if? Yeah. what happens?
And, you go into what you don't know. And you made the comment a moment ago that, we've made a decision to get educated. Well, education is more than just classes. Through NARPM, if you become a member, I encouraged Mark years ago to become a member, we have a discussion board. And things that I might never experience, people ask questions. And it still sticks in my mind that somebody said, I had my first tenant pass away in the property. What do I do? And you think as kind human beings, we would be compassionate and, Brother Bob wants to come in and secure things and so forth. And the advice comes from people much more experienced to go, you don't let anybody into that house until you have the documents, who's the executor, because for all you know, Brother Bob takes all the jewelry and Sister Sally's coming after you because you let him in the house. You don't even think about these things until you get into putting yourself in a position where you can learn, where you can find out. And it's like, I would venture to say, what do we have? Over 2,000 agents. I'm sure a lot of them have their own rental properties. How many of them are aware you cannot hold the security deposit? It must by, you cannot hold the security deposit.
Who holds the security deposit?
The broker or in a broker authorized account.
That's a
And
Georgia
it's not actually a Georgia law in the Georgia landlord tenant. It's part of the license law that says that. And, we talked about this yesterday. I own a rental with my husband. Well, he's not an agent. Gosh, it doesn't matter. But you don't know what you don't know. You've got to, look, I'm not here to tell anybody don't do leases or don't do property management. Just put yourself in a position to grow and learn and do that over and over again. I mean, I've been doing this 30 years and I still go to like 3 conferences a year. I still go, I must watch 10, 15 different podcast speakers, webinars. It's just, when you stop learning, you might as well just give it up.
Well, and it's the biggest risk is those agents. Owning investment properties is good. We're in the real estate business, all of us. It is a fabulous business to be in it. Yeah. But it becomes very emotional when that agent is the investor and the landlord also. And they do, why can't I hold that security deposit in my account? Well, I'll take it even a step further. And you mentioned husband. If she's the agent, of course, Atlanta Communities is the brokerage. And that's, again, not Atlanta Communities rule. It's a license law rule. So that has to go to the brokerages. Well, rent money is also considered trust money. Well, why can't it come into my account? Because you're licensed and now you're managing, even though that's your husband. What if something happens? That trust money should also be coming to the brokerage. Now, again, that's something that you want to set up, make sure your rules are put into place, your softwares are put into place, whether it's something that the brokerage provides or online software, regardless, that money is trust money and it has to be managed.
Licensees want to argue with you all day long about that very thing. And it's just.
But it's my property, Mark. I can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And well, then surrender your license. Go right ahead. It's okay if you do it that way. Quit claim your husband or yourself off the deed.
Correct.
If you trust your husband well enough. Whatever you got to do, but you can't just circumvent it just because you don't like it.
Like Clint said, it's the law. You got to follow it.
Right. And whether you agree with it or not, that doesn't matter. You have to.
If you don't like the law, then lobby to get it changed.
Correct.
Right. But you can't just set it aside or make a decision that you're not going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, they want to.
And like Clint said, when you talk about, you get emotional about your own property, it's like, oh, there's some marks on the walls. Well, I repainted that property 3 years ago. Well, guess what? People don't understand, and fortunately most tenants don't understand this, all they got to do is file a dispute in magistrate court, might cost them $110, $125. They get in front of the judge, and the judge goes, when did you last repaint this? You want to hold money on that? We're charging you treble damages. You should know better. You're a licensed agent.
it hurts. And again, that's a ding also against the brokerage, and it hurts, everyone.
Yeah, and
Not
if you
just
go to magistrate's court, I mean, all you have to do is go a few times.
Just sit and
see
listen.
some of those things. And those judges are, I don't know if they're mad because they're magistrate judges
Right.
and they have to listen to all these sob stories and stuff. I've seen them go, stop. Don't say
Right.
another word.
Mhm.
It's over. I'm ruling for this person. And that's it.
It's like some good reality TV.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
and-
it really is. And sometimes
And I want to
it's
add
crazy.
one more point on this. Agents need to understand that you have to prorate. You have to consider that appliance is 5 years old and it's only got a 7-year life expectancy, lifespan. You can Google anything you want. Just go out there and say, what's the lifespan of a refrigerator? What's the lifespan of paint in a rental property? And you'll get a 3 to 5 year range, whatever it is. You can only charge the tenant for the remaining useful life. I'm sorry, you have to pay the full cost to replace it. But don't put yourself in a position where a judge is going to come back and say, not only were you wrong, but you have to pay the tenant 3 times what you wanted to charge them because you were stupid. You're a licensed agent.
So it begs the question for all of you out there that are watching this. If you're going to list a property for lease, or you think you might want to be a property manager, you might want to think again. And Atlanta Communities, by and large, will tell you, we don't like to tell you no, but you should tell yourself no and, go get an expert to do some of this stuff. I mean, really, it's really, again, if everything goes well, I was telling them before we started the filming about the time I had a rental listing, so a lease listing in my neighborhood. It was about 8 houses away from me. All of the neighbors are telling me who they want as tenants. I walk up there repeatedly to meet people. They never show up. And finally, I also had it for sale for the owner because they had moved here and had to immediately move back to Florida because his wife was not happy. And I said, I'll be happy to sell it for you, but I'm not going to lease it for you. Not going to do it. And I terminated my lease listing agreement.
Well, and some of that is those investors that says, I want this particular group or person or whatever in there.
Yeah.
The person that is licensed is the real estate agent. And that's the one that HUD's going to come to, or the real estate commission is going to, and say, hey, you messed up in this. Well, my investor told me to do this. Like, nope, you're the licensed one. You're the one that's the professional. You need to know better.
And something
What that means to everything.
Something Clint mentioned earlier, and we should dig into it a little deeper. When you're going to, whether it's, let's just keep it on lease only, because when you're talking about tenant screening, what are the qualifications? You need to have those in writing. They can't be wishy-washy.
Right.
You've got to have it all spelled out. A lot of people, I don't know if you do this on yours, Clint, but on our application, before they pay an application fee online, all the criteria is spelled out, everything, credit score, income, all the criteria is there. But you've got to know how you're going to handle things. And here's the most important part. If your owner wants it done differently, and it's within the bounds of what's legal and permissible, you need to have that in writing from that owner so that you can then apply it to that person.
Equally to
Equally,
And you
correct.
can't-
That's the kicker.
And you can't then turn around and say, I've got an approved applicant, and the owner says, no, I don't want that applicant. And maybe it's some ethnicity name or something. They don't tell you that. You have to tell that owner, this is the candidate. This is the criteria you gave me. You're either going to approve this candidate, or I'm going to refund their application fee and terminate my lease listing agreement with you, because you're not going to put me in a position to jeopardize my real estate license. But put it in writing. And we've had many cases in the brokerage where it's all a dispute, and there was nothing written in the criteria beforehand. They're making it up as they go along. Oh, the owner was like, well, I'd like a 750 credit score, but you told me if it was 700 above, that would work.
Or what is the what do you call it? Compensating factors. If they're not 750, are we going to take 2 extra months of whatever and have it all in writing so that again,
Well,
you
you put
can't-
one, we do.
And by the way, the 2 extra months, I think it was last year, it was
just
capped by.
So you can't do 3
legislature.
extra months or whatever.
See?
But it's an education.
You can do
thing.
prepaid rent, but you can
do
only
prepaid rent, but-
maximum 2 months security deposit. Yeah.
That education, as
Yeah.
our contracts change twice a year, you mic drop.
Yeah.
It's education, and it's not just a one and done. It's a continuous education that they have to go through on a yearly basis.
Right.
Well, and that applies to just doing real estate sales. I mean, I know I'm not the norm, but it's like almost every year when the license law classes come out, I go to 2 of them. I'll go hear Campbell and Brannon's. I'll go hear Monica Gilroy's. I'll get different nuggets. One of the trainers in the property management world made a point. You go to a conference or a class, whatever. All you need is to pick up 1, 2, or 3 nuggets. You don't have to absorb everything.
Right. Absolutely.
Get the nugget, apply it to your knowledge base, apply it to your business operations, move on.
Well, and another thing I think that needs to be said is the fact that we have brokerages out here in Metro Atlanta, won't name names, don't know that I know all the names, that will not allow their people to list property for lease and for sure won't allow them to do property management. They have specific segments of their company that are management companies, et cetera. Anything you get that direction, you have to send it over to them. And we have never been that strict, nor are we going to become that strict. But again, you should police yourself and say, hey, I don't think I can do this. I don't need to do it. Let me refer you to somebody who can.
Or if you do want to do, ask the question. Call Natasha, call Mark, call whoever your broker is in anything. And I know this podcast possibly goes out to other brokerages. Just call and ask the question.
Right.
You know, and FMLS, you touched on that rental criteria that we upload our lead-based paint disclosures, our property disclosures, all that. Upload that in there. It's there for everybody to see. Or if you're listing in Zillows, listing wherever, make sure that criteria is applied, put out everywhere uniformly, and utilize that. Don't change it because you think that I can change it, and for sure don't change it because that investor said change it.
Yeah. Look, don't get us wrong. I mean, we're both in this business because it's something we enjoy. It's lucrative. We make a good living
You
at it.
enjoy that?
Yes, I do. But
I've been referring all my stuff to Mark.
there you go. But just make sure, like anything in life, if you're going to do it, learn how to do it.
Right.
You know, not here to scare you or turn you away from it, but
A little bit of scare.
Yeah.
be a professional.
The Navy SEALs have a saying that says anything worth doing in life is worth overdoing.
Sure.
And that's one of their mottos. So,
Sure.
that's a big deal. Again, you don't know what you don't know.
So I want to pull us into one of our last discussions in this conversation, which is on the real estate scams, the leasing scams that are taking place that run rampant. And a lot on Craigslist, a lot of these different platforms. How can an agent who is working with a tenant that's trying to find them a property be more vigilant to ensure that they're not being sucked into scams?
Well, there's a few different ways of doing that. As we utilize it, and even sometimes ours gets hijacked, we as a company will scan, just Google the address, and you're going to find whatever. Whether it's on Zillow, of course, reputable, but to your Craigslist point, to the other saying, hey, it's essentially half the price than it really is listed. That's a huge red flag.
That's a red flag.
Huge red flag. But agents know we've got a real list we can tap into, see the tax records, see, okay, John Doe really does own this, and this is not John Doe, and it doesn't really look like a professional company. Most of our companies, most real estate brokerages have some type of insignia, as we're required to, on our listing. Make sure it is legit. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
Well, one of the things we do self-showings. We don't go out and show the properties to the tenants on our inventory. But we made up years ago these hard plastic tags that are about this size, and you need a pretty good tool to cut them open, and it's on the shackle, and it's what I call a fraud card, and it says this property's represented by Avalon Property Management, and here's our phone number, and if you didn't get contacted by or communicate with somebody in Avalon, this is fraud. Don't pay any money. And it's got like a red and yellow hazard thing around it on the borders of the color. But it's just one more tool to try to help protect that potential applicant that you might be getting scammed if you didn't hear of our company.
Yeah, no, HUD went through a bunch of that stuff with HUD homes where they had to put the notices on the inside of the property because people were taking the notices on, put that stuff.
We take it a step further, and I'm sure you do this, just didn't mention it, is it's in our listing. Our photos are watermarked, different things like that. It's hard to pull a watermark off of a photo. So again, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Don't get in that instance because again, that tenant is going to look back at the agent like, hey, you're the one that found me this.
Yeah.
And being on the tenancy side of representation, I understand and you hope that they will buy a house one day. Just make sure your I's are dotted, T's crossed for them.
Always.
This has been really great information. And it's, I want to ask one more question because I think it's important. What would you tell an agent to do right now that has an interest? What's the next step for them? Where should they get that education?
Start with NARPM.
Yep.
Join the National Association of Residential Property Managers. I'm not going to tell you it's the be-all to end-all, but let's be realistic. NAR, GAR, they just brush over leasing. They just like they do commercial. If you're going to get involved, go where there are other professionals. This is the thing most people won't do. Invest in yourself. Spend the money to go to a conference, to go to courses, to be a member of the chapter, attend the chapter meetings. I mean, it drives Clint and I nuts that we have over 300 members in our chapter, and we typically see about 60 at a chapter meeting every other month.
Pretty good.
No,
it is
good.
good, but you look at what you're missing out on that component there, and I enjoy people in general, but I enjoy listening to what somebody has, regardless whether they're in my industry or not, because I'm gonna pick up that nugget that says, I could apply this to my business. So, answer to your question is narpm.org. Super simple to join, very cheap to join. And it gives you a whole lot more than just the membership. Of the conferences Tal mentioned, the education, the luncheons,
the networking.
I'm of the opinion it is worth that chat board that he discussed earlier. My money that I pay every year is worth just that because I learned so much from just reading emails. What happens in this situation? Well, I didn't think about that. I've never had that happen, right. Whether it's a death or, it's, a house caught on fire, whatever it is. Oh, I need to make sure I have these policies put into place. And it's in your backyard. You're learning from there. It's not from another state. We all talk different laws and stuff that came into play recently or whatever it was. Or, hey, I need a vendor. Most of the vendors we're putting out there are not Cousin Bobby that can fix something. They're a licensed insured vendor, and that is also super important from the liability perspective.
Yeah, and when we are dealing with education, exposure, networking. Once you start getting involved, I know Clint does this. Well, you don't do Facebook. I belong to like 5 or 6 property management groups on Facebook. More discussions are happening there. I'll posit a question here and there. It's so much. There are so many resources if you're willing to be open to it. So if somebody really wants to do this, I can speak for Clint. I'll speak for me. Call us. We'll walk you through it.
Absolutely.
We'll hold your hand.
Absolutely.
You might regret that.
No. Because at the end of the day,
blind.
that gives it helps us help them. But if something goes wrong, it also, from the public eye, hurts our industry. And we want to be able to educate that person. I told an agent yesterday, go to my website, pull my rental criteria, just of course remove my business name. utilize it. I don't care. That's going to help them kind of move to that next step and get in there.
Yeah, and there's people. It was really interesting, when as coming from the sales side, nobody wants to share their secret sauce in sales. It's like, that's my technique. This is how I talk to expireds, or what I do with open houses or FSBOs, whatever. It's so different. Many of you know a gentleman named Michael McCreary, been around forever. And Michael, I'll never forget, 10, 12 years ago, sitting on a panel at our chapter meeting, and made the comment, we all share with each other openly because we're not the competition. The competition is the 65% of the public that self-manages their home. Let's do a better job for all of them. And
even from the self-manager, I know we're kind of wrapping up, but again, knowing those laws, your investor out in California that is self-managing is now illegal to manage that home in Georgia. So when that agent goes and leases that, they've already started off on the wrong foot, and it shouldn't happen. Again, just one little tidbit that you learn.
I would go back for our agents that are watching this. If you own a rental property, start there. Get yourself more educated to not make the mistakes for the things you don't know.
Yeah, we have one of our real estate professionals who was moving from Atlanta Communities to a different brokerage. And when they started moving, because they had rental properties that we were holding the security deposits, their company they moved to would not hold security deposits. So they said, well, release it to us. Yes, you remember it quite well. Release it to us. It probably took, I don't know, 8, 9, or 10 months. The broker said, well, do it this. And I was like, we cannot do it that way. That's a violation of license. You're not doing it. And we kept the security deposits for a long time until convinced the agent to hire a property management company, which they did in the end. And we transferred all the security deposits to them.
It was very emotional for that agent that was doing it. But we take that even a little bit.
And even the brokerage that they were at just said, well, you can do that. And I said, no, your brokerage was wrong.
Well, in our management, I know both of our agreements, our management agreement even states from the investor perspective, we will not convey that security deposit. If transferred, say they want to move on to another company or self-manage, we will not transfer that security deposit to them. It's too emotional. We want to transfer it to a licensed brokerage that has a trust account, and that makes it.
Yeah, we've actually put. I know this would sound shocking to some people, but we've actually put in our management agreement, if they leave us to self-manage, when they sign that agreement, they've authorized us to return the deposit to the tenant.
Correct.
Go get a new one. We're not going to be pulled back in 2 years later because the owner spent the money.
Right.
And
It's either another brokerage or back to the Senate.
And things like that you have to think about. Sometimes they want to prepay rent. Okay, as a management company, and even our software natively, unless we override it, does this. If, let's say they don't have any credit, they're a foreign national, so our criteria is, okay, get an in-state cosigner or prepay 12 months rent. It just sits in our trust account, and we'll pay it out to the owner each month as it comes due. If you're a leasing-only agent and you get prepaid rent and you send it to that owner, let's say best intentions, maybe divorce, death, whatever, bankruptcy, who is that tenant coming back to for those funds down the road? Another reason, customer, not client. Reduce your liability.
I love it. Gentlemen, I'm going to help wrap this up.
We could go all day.
I know. Well, it's a great discussion. It really is. And I know that someone I heard in the pipeline has a CE class that they're working on this topic that we'll be able to dive a little bit deeper in, let our agents learn, get some CE for it, all of the do's and don'ts of property management. So that's something to look forward to. So we have a question we asked. We're going to ask each of you, and it's just how we kind of close up the show. But what is a favorite podcast or favorite book right now that you are really intrigued by?
Every Saturday morning I see
Wake Up
with Broker Up. It's pretty awesome. I wish he would touch on some property management, but yeah.
He may now.
Yeah.
We'll see, it's right there.
Yeah.
I've thought about this because I have watched all the previous episodes and knew the question was coming. There isn't a single one. It's more. I don't do a lot of the books that the real estate industry and stuff like that. I mostly in podcast webinars, that type of things for my education. But I know that at the holidays this year, our company gave each of you and the other brokers and managers a book called Funny Money. Ordered on Amazon, $19. But it's a small book. It reads just like you're having a conversation with somebody. And it's a mutual friend of ours, Justin Anderson, who wrote the book, who used to manage, I think he was over 1,000 units himself that he owned, and cut it down to next to nothing. But he has taken Fed data and other criteria to be able to identify market cycles when you're at a buying point, when you're at a selling point, and where you should do your investments. And I found it really informative. And literally, I sat down in one day, Saturday, 2 different sessions, read the whole book. And that's every year for the holidays. You know what our holiday gift is to all our owners? In our owner's statement, we thank them for their business. First time we've ever done this. We sent out over 200 copies of the book. Wow. Now, probably 10 people read it. I don't care. I wanted them to have access to that.
Big deal.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I would say on mine, I don't necessarily read books. I like listening to books. I have a hard time, opening a book. I enjoy when I'm driving or just sitting still, if you will. Indistractable. And not necessarily related to property management, real estate, anything, but really becoming, we're so distracted, and especially real estate agents. It's a shiny object over here, shiny object over there, is just trying to hone my life or my time of not getting distracted by something. Now, whether that means time blocking, whether it means just committing time for yourself or your family or friends, whatever it is. Mark is great about this of wishing a happy birthday or, hey, thinking about you, or what, I'm sorry to hear that, your dog passed away, whatever it is. He takes that time and sets it aside to drop that text. Now, whether it's, I did it one time, I set a text to go out to him, and his first comment was, I hope you're not up this late or this early. And thank you. Yeah. But is just not being distracted. We are all guilty of that. It doesn't matter what industry. It tends to be a little more in the real estate things. It's a great book, and it helps you really hone in on whatever your goals are. And if it's property management, so be it. Okay, how do I not get distracted from all these things that I see on Google, on the internet? I need to join NARPA.
What's the name again?
Indistractable.
And now we have one more question.
All right.
You're going first this time.
Are you
Okay.
going to ask the question?
So if you had an opportunity to have breakfast, coffee, lunch, whatever, with somebody past, present, or maybe even in the future, who would that person be?
Again, I had thought about this, and it's 2 different answers. For me, it isn't an individual. It'd be any past president, any leader, any titan of industry, true successful entrepreneur. I just want to talk to them and find out, how did you get from here to there? What were the obstacles? And I'm not brown-nosing to Judson, but even Judson, look where you started when we first were there. What were the obstacles? What motivated you? How did you get over those obstacles to accomplish that? Because I think those conversations, I can learn something and help myself grow. The other thing is my birth father passed when at age 51. I was only 20. I would love now to be able to go back and have a conversation as an adult that's gained experiences to, he had become very successful at the end of his life, and same kinds of questions of him.
I love that.
Yeah, thinking more into it, I've told Blair this, I've told you this. He's not going to like it, but Mark is one of my favorite people. I was formerly at Atlanta Communities, had a bright idea of, venturing out, trying to do a sales brokerage, whatever. Mark was always there to lean on from an intelligent perspective. He thinks out of the box, but he also thinks, okay, back to what our license is and how it matters. But from life experiences, whether it was the Marines or just in general, from raising kids, we've had kids discussions, all that. I do really, and I've told you this, but I toot your name out more than to other people. You were one of the most intelligent people in our industry in Atlanta. No, really, you really do, and you're not given enough credit for that because of everything you have experienced. And Judson also,
because he doesn't seek the credit,
right? He doesn't seek the credit, but the experiences that you've had have been able to give not just Atlanta Communities agents, but other people in our industry to kind of step back and go, yeah, wow, I wish I had the knowledge he has. And I know you're not huge on the property management. I believe if you ventured down that, you would have that same knowledge.
There's a lot of interesting things that I've learned from both of you about the systematized. I mean, it's right up my alley because it's systematized, it's habitual, it's consistent, and how to do all those things. And then once you have all that in place, which of course has taken a lifetime to get there, once you and it grows exponentially all the time. But once you have all that in place, it's pretty. I mean, you just follow the script, so to speak.
Well, and in sales, and not to kind of go against that, you never know what's going to happen sometimes. Property management, as far as property management company, it is very systematized and very organized. You have to have a plan in place for what if. And sometimes in sales, you're like, okay, that's a different experience. Let me pick up the phone and call Mark. He's most likely experienced it. That is the system right there, is calling Mark or calling Natasha or calling your broker in that. So,
and that's what our agents, they don't utilize the resources enough. Talk to your broker. There's no question that's too dumb or it's like, I should know this. I don't know why people are hesitant to ask for help.
I don't even. I remember in boot camp, I had, it was primary marksmanship, PMI, primary marksmanship instructor. And he was from the Bronx, New York. He was a little bitty guy, wiry. He'd pick up a rifle from anybody and hit the bullseye at 500 meters. And I'd be like, okay, that's amazing. And I asked all kinds of questions. He said, because I was 24, he said, how have you been alive for 24 years and you don't know the answers to any of these questions? And I said, because I want to know the answers, which is why I'm asking the questions. Sure. And I scored some points with him because of that. But it was true. I mean, I'd never shot a weapon before I joined the Marine Corps. Never been around. Never had anything. I was a city kid. Never had anything. You got to learn.
Well, and asking the questions is to your broker, not ChatGPT, not Google, not or not your peers out there.
You're only as good as your peers are good.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, Clint, Tal, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you coming.
Of course, we enjoyed it.
Enjoy the opportunity.
Especially after your testimony. Thank you.
No.
There's going to be some great, that's a great cutout for sure.
No.
Every day he'll
I told Blair
that all out and it'll be a broker episode.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, did you guys see this?
No, not at all.
Well, we appreciate you coming in, and hopefully we'll have you back in the studio again and helping us to learn a little bit more about property management.
Deal.
Awesome. Yeah.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Atlanta Communities Real Estate Brokerage. Content shared is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, tax, or real estate advice. Listeners should consult with their own licensed professionals before making business or real estate decisions. Atlanta Communities Real Estate Brokerage is an equal opportunity employer and supports the Fair Housing Act.